Hello everybody, it's Peter McLaughlin with BlueSky Hypnosis. Today is Friday, the 22nd of January, and this is Friday live at 5. We are going to be talking about healing your past trauma utilizing spirit guides today. So glad you're here, and as always, if you have questions, please put them in the comments section. That's what makes this interactive and prevents it from being just kind of a one-way thing. And if you have as I say, questions, comments. If you have suggestions about future lives that you'd like to see, please make sure that you send those to me too. Either put them in the comments section or send me an email at some later date, peter@blueskyhypnosis.com. If you have other questions you want to just ask me, feel free to go ahead and do that. Sometimes I don't get back to people right away, but I always try to get back to folks at some point. There's a lot of, like a lot of us, there's a lot of things going on. I am broadcasting today from an unusual location. My wife and I bought a house in Florida. We'd been living in upstate New York, and we got down here last night. So the house that I'm in, it probably sounds kind of hollow because there's nothing in it. We brought sleeping bags. We slept on the floor last night. We had a bed delivered today. There's no furniture here. So this is kind of a makeshift studio, if you will, for right now. And I'm sure that as time goes on, it will get a little bit better. Standard disclaimer: I'm not a licensed psychologist. I'm not an unlicensed psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm a hypnotist and a life coach. So if you have important physical, psychological, emotional issues going on, you want to contact your licensed professional. There is my standard disclaimer. So without further ado, let's get into today. We're talking about healing your past trauma, utilizing spirit guides. So let's just talk about what spirit guides are first and foremost. A spirit guide you can think of, I guess for like a Christian, you would think of it maybe as a guardian angel. It's a non-physical being, a non-physical entity, which is what I think we are at our root, at our core. We're non-physical entities who are temporarily inhabiting a human body. And we get so wedded to this five-sense reality, both by the experiences that we have in this computer simulation game, some people call it that. Plato's allegory of the cave kind of described the same thing a couple thousand years ago, that we forget who we really are. Our society teaches us things like seeing is believing, and it's all in your head, and it's only a dream, and it's just your imagination. And in this way, it kind of robs us, if you will, of our remembrance of our true nature. But we have these entities, these beings, these loving beings who are kind of like mentors that know us maybe better than we know ourselves, that have been with us for more than just this lifetime, and who are always available to assist us. They're always available to help us. But unfortunately in this culture, we haven't been taught that largely anything exists outside the little box of the five-sense reality. We certainly haven't been taught about spirit guides or how to access those guides. So this is what we're going to be discussing today, obviously, and then how to utilize the guide to heal a past trauma. So the guide is a wise, loving, non-physical entity who is assigned to you, who knows you, as I say, perhaps better than you know yourself. And it makes so much sense, in my opinion, to make contact with your spirit guide and to begin utilizing them to help you through this lifetime. So one of the pieces of wisdom that I got from my guide, and this was 5 or 10 years ago in a deep state of hypnosis, was they said to me, when we put you in the canoe of life, we gave you a paddle. It's not our fault if you don't use the paddle. And what they showed me was a canoe going down a river and kind of spinning around and bouncing into rocks and hitting they call them strainers, when a tree leans over the river and it gets stuck under there, and spinning around in an eddy. And then sometimes when the river is calm, the canoe is going straight. And the whole time this is happening, they're showing me a paddle between my feet on the bottom of the canoe while I'm sitting there, having this experience of going down the river. And it was such a brilliant metaphor, I thought, because I like to paddle and I understand how a simple tool like a paddle, and we even have the phrase, right? You're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. I mean, if you have a paddle, you can navigate whatever the river throws at you, the river of life. And yes, sometimes the river is really calm and it's pretty easy. And maybe you could imagine you might not even need a paddle. But if any kind of challenge comes up and you don't have a paddle, you're really, as they say, effed. So I thought that was absolutely magnificent. And in that metaphor, what they meant was that the paddle on the bottom of the canoe between my feet was my spiritual guidance. So that's principally the spirit guide. Is that the only guide you have? No, there are other guides. So there's certainly a spirit council. That would be like a group of guides. Of usually they appear as wise elders that you can meet with. The guide is almost like your advisor in college. It doesn't mean that you can't go to the dean, you can't go to this committee and that committee of your specific discipline or your college. Of course you can, but there are these other types of helpers. But this is the one that's the real intimate one. And in many respects, I would say it's the one that at least in my practice, when I work one-on-one with clients, that we go through that guide to go wherever we need to go. So if we need to go into a past life, if we need to go earlier in the present life, if we need to meet the higher self, if we need to see the Akashic record, if we need to meet with the Spirit Council, this is the being that we're working through on all of those areas, if you will. All right, I'm going to see who's here and if there are any questions. All right, so Musette, good to see you here, Musette, and I see that you just signed up for the class that we're doing, the past life regression class. It's a 3-hour paid class that we're doing on Saturday, February 5th from 1 to 4. And Musette just signed up for this. And Musette, there's a discount code, which is BlueSky 222. And there's no space between the BlueSky and the 222. I may have screwed that up at some point. But the code wasn't able to work. So I said to Musette I was going to give her a discount. I'm going to be sending that to you. If anyone else wants to sign up for the class, please consider doing so. Link to that is going to be in the description of this video and the last number of videos that deal with spirit guides in past lifetimes. Okay, Raynola Dominguez, good to see you. DH, good to see you. Happy New Year to you, D. Here's English Rose. Hello, English. Happy Friday to you too. Thank you regarding the house. We're pretty psyched about it. Here's Heather Marney. Yeah, the weather. Oh yeah. Before we left, we had to delay our trip down here. There was a big storm that came into Western New York. We got almost 2 feet of snow overnight, which we love. We actually love the snow, but it delayed the trip. And today, my sons are still in the house in Western New York, and the temperature this morning was 3 degrees, and here it was like this morning. I think it was like mid-60s or something. So yeah, it feels really good. 30-day Jeff, good to see you, 30-day. Life of Possible live session potential now. Yeah, cool. Here is D. D says, my spirit guides only appear in my dreams. Is this normal? All my issues are resolved through dreams. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, dreams would be a time when your subconscious mind would be deactivated. And I think what happens, largely due to our conditioning in our culture, again, that tells us that the 5-sense reality more or less is all that exists, is that if you begin to have some kind of spiritual experience while your conscious mind is awake and aware, it tends to reject it. It says, I'm not really noticing that. That doesn't exist. That can't be possible. It must just be my imagination, and push it out of the way. But when you're asleep and the conscious mind cannot do that, then you're free to have all of these experiences. I think part of the key to being able to tap into all of this is to learn how to do this when your conscious mind is awake, is aware, but is in the background. That's basically what hypnosis is. And then the other part of being able to do this while you're awake would be training yourself to accept what is coming to you without reflexively rejecting it. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. But like anything else, riding a bike or learning to play golf, you get better at it with time. So it is normal for things to come to you in your dreams, including your spirit guides. It's normal to work through things in dreams. In fact, I think we're doing this all the time. I think our dream life is something that, again, our culture largely says is, oh, it was just a dream. We say that. We have that very saying. It was only a dream, or it was just a dream. Dismissing it. When really, there's all kinds of wisdom that's occurring, and I think we're working through problems. And I think, call it God, our higher self, our spirit guides, are trying to get our attention during dreams. And one of the questions I will always ask my clients is, have you ever had recurring dreams? So I see recurring dreams as some other part of us or the universe trying to get in touch with us, like ringing our doorbell. We don't answer the door, it rings it again, starts knocking, knocks on the window, trying to get our attention, recurring over and over and over again, trying to get the message through. But so many of us just dismiss the dream. We don't pay attention to it. We say that was weird and we push it away. And we don't try to go deeper into it and say, what does this mean? What is this message that is being given to me? And I would say, in my experience, it's one of two things. Either the dream is something that happened to you in the past. This could be in a past life, not just in the past of your present life. It could also be a metaphor. And this is where a lot of us get tripped up. Something will happen, it doesn't seem to make any sense. But then when you see it as a metaphor, it makes perfect sense. And when an animal, for example, appears in your dreams, I would say go right onto the internet and type in spiritual meaning of giraffe, spiritual meaning rhinoceros. And when you start to read what that animal represents, it probably has something really important that pertains to what you're going through in your life at the present moment. That's what I have found with my clients, because they will have that experience in hypnosis. They'll have maybe certain animals that come to them, and I'll check into this right away and see what the spiritual meaning of that is while they're in hypnosis. And most often it pertains exactly to what that person is going through, even though on the surface I don't know what the meaning of that animal is, and neither does the client. So I think it's really important to pay attention to your dreams and to go deeper into them and take the dream as a message. It's some kind of message that your subconscious mind or your spirit guide or God or the universe or what have you is trying to deliver to you, and especially if it's a recurring dream. Now, once the message has been received and acted upon, there's no reason to have that dream anymore. Okay, cool. So thanks for that comment. Marie Hogan, happy Friday, Peter, and happy Friday to friends. Happy Friday to you too, Marie. It's good to see you here. Here is Ajna. Congrats. I love Florida. So do we. Brand new. People are so friendly here. It's awesome. Joyce Shaw. Hello, Joyce. Joyce says, much happiness to you and your family in your new home in Florida. Thank you for that. Hi, Gertrude Hill. Good to see you here. And Sydney, glad you're with us. Here is Ajna, and Ajna says, yes, you're right, but what is the proof? Sometimes they mix talks with spirit guides as mental illness. Okay, so I love when this line of thought comes up, because I really, really wonder, and I think we talked about this maybe 6 or 7 lives ago, how many people have been diagnosed with a mental disorder that are actually having spiritual experiences? So the most common, I think, with mental disorders might be spiritual entities that are attached to that person who's been diagnosed with a mental disorder. They could be riddled with spiritual entities that are attached to them, and those spiritual entities are influencing their mind. They're talking to them inside of their head. And because our culture, our medical and psychological paradigm doesn't recognize spiritual attachment, they would never look for this. They would never think that this is a possibility, and then they just give that person the classification of being mentally disturbed or insane or whatever, and put them on medication, lock them away, whatever that may be. So, could a spirit guide be talking to an individual? Yeah, it could happen, but I'm not sure that would be confused with a mental disorder, the way spiritual entities attach to a person and communicating to them would be confused with a mental disorder. I think that would be, from my way of looking at this, and take it for what it's worth, I would think that would be far more likely, far more common. But your point is really well taken. And I do think that we'll reach a point in time at which we recognize the truth of entities attaching to people, how they influence those people, and how that sometimes is implicated in what we call mental illness or mental disorders. So thanks for that comment. That's really cool. All right, here is Miriam. Miriam, it's good to see you again. Hello, Peter. What a beautiful green background. I know, it is. It's really cool. Thank you for saying that. And it's good to see you. Kristen Hubbard, good to see you, Kristen. Happy Friday to you too. Here's Gertrude. Gertrude says, all day I felt drawn to deep meditation. It was so strong. I finally just lay down and let it take over. I did not see or hear anything, but I could feel like some being took like possession of me. Okay, well, that sounds pretty powerful. And I guess, from my perspective, I would want to know, what kind of being is this? And what intention does this being have? Is the intention for your highest and greatest good? Is it some entity that is trying to use you? Because obviously that wouldn't be so good. So, if you have more information on this and you feel like sharing it, please do. Okay. Jill Turner. Jill says, hooray, it's Friday. Hello, everyone. Your house looks gorgeous. Thank you very much, Jill. Thank you. Valerie Nelson. I'm in for the class. Yay! Awesome. That's going to be so much fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Have you registered already? Because I'm not sure if I've seen your name yet, but I hope you're coming. That's great. Gertrude is saying that the being was very nice. So the next question would be, who is the being? And what was their intention? What was their purpose? I think that would be really important to understand. But thanks for filling us in. Here's Katie Johnson. Katie says, hi, from Seattle. Is everyone's spirit guide one has a person who they knew before they passed? No. So I think what you're saying is everyone's spirit guide like a grandparent or something, or an uncle who died while the person in question is still alive? Definitely not. That can be the case. It can be a relative. But most often it's someone that you don't exactly know who they are, but you feel extremely comfortable in their presence. You feel safe, you feel trusted. It feels like you've known them for a long time, even though you don't know where you know them from. And it's this discordance between the conscious mind and the rest of your being. And I think this is because you have known them for eons. You've known them for multiple lifetimes, and all the life between lives between those lifetimes. And through the veil of forgetfulness, you've forgotten all the details of who they are, but you feel, the feeling state is, I've known you, and I've known you for a long time. So great question. Kristen Hubbard is asking where I am today. So you must have missed the very beginning, and I was just saying that my wife and I bought a house in Florida. We came down here last night with only the stuff that would fit in my truck, which isn't very much. And we slept on the floor last night in sleeping bags. A bed arrived today. We don't have any furniture yet. That's why it sounds kind of hollow in here, and we're going to spend the next couple of weeks just making this house a home. Here is Sydney Morales. My spirit guides help me in dreams, like on certain missions and apocalyptic settings. They give me tools to survive. That is really cool. Would you mind sharing with us what are some of those tools that they give you to survive? I think that would be really interesting. I know I'd be really interested in that. I'm sure other people here would be as well. Jill Turner says, Peter, do you think strong intuition is the same energy as a spirit guide? I think it can be. Absolutely. I think a spirit guide can communicate to us, as I was saying before, in dreams. And I think a spirit guide can communicate to us through what you're calling intuition. Absolutely. And I think that that's more likely if we don't have a formal way of connecting with those guides. I think then the only avenues they really have would be dreams, maybe a deep state of prayer, if you've got a fever, and you're kind of in an altered state of consciousness, or through intuition, or maybe through signs. I mean, some people really believe in that, like if they see certain numbers that recur, or if they see a particular animal, I was mentioning animals before, that shows up at a key moment in time. I think these are all ways that guides can communicate with us. And again, my preference for myself and for working with my clients is to do this consciously, is to do this on purpose, and to establish in this lifetime a living, intimate relationship with our spirit guide that we can then call on anytime we want, that we can meet with on a daily basis. Why not? But yeah, I think intuition is really important, and I think it could be the voice of a spirit guide coming to you, but I don't know that it's definitely that voice. All right, but great question. Let's see. Hilda says, welcome to Florida. Thank you, Hilda. I take it you're living here too. Thank you so much. People are really nice here. And let's see, here is Kristen. Kristen said, I was wondering if you could do a hypnosis to help people to stop clearing their throat, or to be nicer to anyone and anything, like pets and animals. Okay. So I'll just talk about this briefly. If we were working together and you had this thing about clearing your throat all the time, I would want to know, as I want to know with any issue, what is the root cause of this? When did it begin? Because it began at a moment in time for a specific reason. Now, the absolute root cause of this, even if it only be, let's just say for the sake of argument, you're 40 years old, and that the clearing of your throat didn't begin until you were 30 years old. But it's also possible that the root cause of this didn't begin at 30 years old. It could have been that at 30 years old, something got triggered that began when you were 3 years old, or something that got triggered that began in a previous lifetime. So root cause is always what I'm looking for when I'm working with my clients. And then what was the other part of what you were saying? Oh, to be nicer to just put it back up here. To be nicer to anyone or anything, like pets and animals. So the way I look at this is that in order to be nicer to people, pets, animals, etc., we have to first be nicer to ourselves. In order for someone else to really love us the way we want to be loved, I think we have to love ourselves that way. Now, something could be blocking you from loving yourself. Some old trauma could be blocking you from that. And that's actually kind of where the spirit guides come in, at least in how I help my clients with their guides. And that is to work through the guide to help you pinpoint the time at which this problem began. And then under their auspices or under their aegis to work through that issue or problem. Now, it's not the only way that I work through these problems with people. I oftentimes will use a pendulum. And a lot of you will be familiar with me talking on and on and on about pendulums and understanding what that deeper wisdom is inside of us. Now, could a spirit guide be controlling that pendulum? Could be indeed. But I would say that as within, so without, the spiritual law of correspondence, that to be nicer to pets and animals, I think we need you to be nicer to yourself. We need you to love yourself more. Because if you've got that on the inside, that's what you're going to express on the outside. If there's something the opposite, cruelty, unkindness, then that's likely to come out of you and affect other people, other animals. I hope that makes sense. And I'll definitely keep that in mind too. But I would say that falls under self-love. That's what it sounds like to me. Thanks for asking the question. Here is, let's see, ASIELB. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Do you know why I had a dream with my ex-husband in it? He had a tragic accident at work last March that killed him. I'm really sorry. Wow, that must have been an absolute shock. In the dream as we spoke, put this back up. In the dream as we spoke, his face had no eyes, no eye sockets or anything. Okay, do you know why I had a dream with my ex-husband in it? He had a tragic accident at work. Okay, so I'm just going to be guessing, right? I can't tell you why you had this dream, but it could be that he's attempting to communicate with you. The thing about not having any eyes or eye sockets could be there was something he didn't see. Now, could that be what caused the accident? Did he miss something? Did he not see something that caused the accident? Was it, in other words, was it something physical he didn't see that caused the accident? Was there something spiritual or emotional he wasn't seeing? Maybe in your relationship. Was there something you weren't seeing? Is there something you're still not seeing? You know, is he trying to communicate to you, I want you to know there's something you're not seeing? I don't know which one of those things I just laid out it is, or if it's something else entirely, but that's how I would be thinking about what you just said. Now, I might suggest that you use a pendulum to try to determine why you had this dream. Was this your husband communicating to you? Was he trying to tell you that there's something you're not seeing? Was he trying to tell you there was something he wasn't seeing? And if so, go deeper into that. Was I not seeing what a great marriage I had? Was I not seeing how wonderful my life was? Was I not seeing something about our kids? Was I not seeing something about whatever? And so on. But that's what I would suggest for you. And maybe some of these thoughts that I'm sharing with you will give you some ideas of how to follow these breadcrumbs, if you will, to the answer, because there is an answer. There's a reason that you had that dream. And you know, finding the reason for having that dream, I would suggest is really important. All right, I just want to make sure that I'm covering some of these areas that I wrote down that I said I was going to. So we talked about what our spirit guides right at the outset. How do I access my spirit guides? So we did talk about how your guides can come to you in a dream. We talked about how intuition could be a spirit guide speaking through you, and now you could use a pendulum to determine, hey, was that thought I had yesterday, what I was calling my intuition, was that my guide speaking to me? Pendulum, yes or no? The way that I like to do this, the sort of direct way, is to have someone go into hypnosis, bring them to what I would call a sacred space. Now that's a place that on this planet you've been outdoors where you felt really comfortable, very safe, very much at home. Could be a beach, could be a meadow, could be the ocean, the forest, what have you. And then in hypnosis, guide you to that guide who's waiting for you in this sacred space. And some people are going to connect to their guide primarily through vision. Now I'm talking about inner sight because their physical eyes are closed. Or they connect with the guide through inner hearing, or they connect to the guide through inner knowing, or they connect to the guide through like kinesthetic physical touch. And again, their hands are not touching anything, but it can feel for some people like I'm holding the hand of this person, and they can feel the person squeeze their hand, and so on. That would be the way I would do this, is through hypnosis, because now we're doing it intentionally. We're not waiting for it to happen in a dream. Now, could you program yourself to have a particular dream? Yes, you could. Would it guarantee you had that dream? Not necessarily. Would you definitely remember it? Not necessarily. But you can program yourself before you go to sleep saying, I want to meet with my spirit guide during my dream tonight, and I want to remember it. And keep repeating that over and over again. I want to meet with my spirit guide tonight while I sleep in a dream, and I want to remember it in the morning. And if you do this enough, you can probably program yourself to meet with your spirit guide in a dream. The other way would be to do it through hypnosis. On my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, subscribe if you haven't. There are tracks that will guide you to meeting your spirit guide. So if any of you want to try that out, you can certainly do that. What else was on here? Can I trust my guidance? Okay, this is another question that often comes up, and I thought that it would be important to tackle this. When you meet with your spirit guide, if you feel really uncomfortable, you need to start asking yourself the question, is this my spirit guide? If you feel totally comfortable, like I'm with my beloved uncle, or I feel like I'm with my best friend, you can be pretty sure you're with your guide. Now, you can always ask them, and you're asking questions in your mind, which is basically like mind to mind or thought to thought. Are you my spirit guide? Now, the guide may say yes, and you hear it in your mind, or the guide may nod and say yes, like that, or they may just open their arms like this, and you probably get a nice feeling, you know that's your guide. If you get anything squarely from them, it may not be your guide. That rarely happens, but they may not be your guide. You can always ask too, are you here? Are you present for my highest and greatest interests? Are you here for my highest and greatest good? And it seems as if in the spirit world, there is no lying. It's like there's karma for lying, or it's just not allowed, or whatever. There is misleading, but it seems to be that there is no lying. And I came across something not long ago called revelation of the method. And what this means, if anybody wants to research this further, and I won't go too far down on this tangent, is that on a spiritual level, if something is being done to us, it has to be revealed in some way, but it could be revealed through a movie. It could be revealed through, I don't know, like a cartoon, or like a popular song. And it could be presented in such a way that makes it seem like a joke. But there is no jokes to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind takes everything literally. And it seems like in the spirit world, even though there's humor, everything seems to be literal. And it seems like there can be no lying. There can be misleading, but there can't be lying. So if you ask this being, are you here for my highest and greatest good? They can't say yes when they're not. They might say nothing, and now you're getting a really good feeling that this is not your spirit guide. So the other thing that you could do in terms of trust is, if you're a Christian, you could ask an ascended master like Mary or Jesus or an angel to come, and you could then ask one of them, is this my spirit guide? If you were of another faith, another religion, you could ask one of the known entities, so known religious entities, to come and sort of vet this person for you if you had any doubts. But in general, when you meet with the guide, you have this feeling like, this person really knows me. I feel comfortable, I feel safe in their presence. I may feel a little intimidated, but I feel all of those other really good feelings, almost like I'm with a beloved grandparent. And I think once you establish that level of trust, the spirit guide now helps you by creating this container, it's sometimes called a container of safety. And when you're with this being, when you're with this entity that you have come to trust, that you have come to feel has your best interests at heart, that they really love you, when they say, go over here or go over there, or you're asked to forgive someone in their presence, or you're going to go into a past lifetime and you're scared of doing that, and they go with you, they can sort of, they're almost like the lubricant that allows difficult things to happen, that reduces the amount of friction so that you can accomplish your goals, you can accomplish your missions, even if they're difficult. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please just ask me to clarify it in the comments section, and I'll go back to the comments now. Let's see. So here's Tim Erickson. Good to see you, Tim. Hello to you too. Here is English Rose. On my last session with you, my spirit guide looked like a younger version of my dad, even though we do not have a good relationship. What do you think that means? All right, so I can't remember exactly if that was for sure your spirit guide. Now, Maybe it was, or maybe a younger version of your dad came for some purpose. It's also possible that your guide and a non-physical entity can look any way they want. And I think this is why when people die and then they're revived, a near-death experience, and they say, "Oh, I met my grandfather. You know, it was amazing," or I met my husband. And when these people show up, when someone dies and then they're revived, they don't show up on their deathbed. They show up at a time of vibrancy relative to the person in question. So if it's a grandchild and the grandfather shows up, he doesn't show up, you know, as a doddering old man. He would show up maybe in his 60s, where he's still strong and healthy at a peak moment in that relationship. And if a husband shows up for a wife who's elderly, who has a near-death experience, he wouldn't show up. You know, he might show up at 25 years old when they were first together. So I guess with your, you know, back to the guide can appear to you any way they want. Now, he may have appeared to you as a younger version of your dad because he wanted to remind you, and I'm just making this up, right? Because I'm certainly not going to reveal anything about, you know, your personal details. So I'm just making this up as though you were anybody. But he might have appeared as a younger version of your dad because maybe you had a sweet relationship with him. Maybe there was a moment in time when he was younger, your dad was younger, that you had a sweet relationship with him. Or maybe there was a time when your dad was younger that something bad happened to him. And it's a way of potentially healing your relationship with your dad. Like almost like going back in time. Like people will say, if I could do it all over again, you know, I would go back 25 years, I'd go back 50 years, and I'd do it this way this time. So maybe it has something to do with that. You can also go back to your pendulum. You can also meet with your guide and ask the guide the question. You can say, why did you appear as a younger version of my dad? What was the purpose? They will tell you. And if they won't tell you, it's because they don't want you to know right now. And then you can say, what has to happen first before you will be willing to answer that question? Will you take me by the hand and lead me, and again, this is all in your consciousness, to a person, a situation, an event in the past, whatever I need to learn right now, so that you can then tell me why you appeared as a younger version of my dad. So hopefully all that makes sense. I know it's a little confusing, but it does work. All right. Okay. The other question I put on here was, how can the past be healed? So I had this conversation earlier today with a client, and we were talking about quantum physics and how everything is happening simultaneously. And I was talking about how part of your mind definitely holds past, present, future. Another part of your mind, it's all happening simultaneously. And so if there's a trauma in the past, in a sense, that trauma is still unfolding right now. So if you go into the past in your consciousness, what we call the past in your consciousness, and we heal that old trauma, then not only do we heal it in what we would call the past, but we're also healing it in what we call the present. And I think this is one of the means by which people are able to overcome chronic anxiety. They're able to overcome rage and anger. They're able to overcome all kinds of things because we are able to heal enough of the wounds that have occurred in their past that is the root cause or the root causes of what they're dealing with in the present moment. So hopefully that makes sense, right? And then the other thing I guess I wanted to clarify about what guides do to help is, and I kind of alluded to it a little while ago, that it may be that there is event A in your past, trauma, that needs to get healed. But before you can heal that, you have to do B and C. B and C have to be healed, or B and C have to be understood. And the guide, if you say, okay, Do I have your permission to go back to trauma A? The guide will say no. And then you say, what do I have to do first? Will you lead me there? And the guide will take you to B, event B. And then they will take you to event C. And once they do that, then you say, am I ready to do A? And they will lead you to A. And in popular literature, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol comes to mind. Also, the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And if you're interested in the analysis of that movie, I did that here on this channel. So it exists on my channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. Clarence, the angel, call him a spirit guide in It's a Wonderful Life, takes George Bailey to a version of Bedford Falls that would be if George had never existed. And taking him through these different experiences brings him to the place where he understands that his life has value. And when he understands his life has value, he's able to interact with the people in his life in a totally different way. That's an example of what a spirit guide can do and how a spirit guide can operate. It's the same thing in A Christmas Carol, that the ghost of Christmas past takes Scrooge into the past, shows him the past from a different perspective, shows him the present from a different perspective, and shows him the future if he doesn't change anything. Once those ghosts, guides, shows Scrooge these different versions of his own life from a different perspective, Scrooge is ready to change. He changes on his own. He doesn't have to be told, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell or something bad's going to happen. They just show him from these different perspectives. And suddenly he releases himself of his own chains. Suddenly his humanity, kind of like the Grinch, comes out, and he's able to empathize with other people because he's experienced his life and their lives from this different perspective. These are all things that spirit guides do. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Here is Purple Diamond. Can you call on your spirit guides to come together with someone else's spirit guides to help them heal or become better? Yes. Yeah, I've definitely done this with a number of my clients, particularly where clients might have a minor child. So I don't really want to, I've done this with my own kids, but when they were little, but I wouldn't do it with other kids just because it can be kind of intense of bringing, so I don't bring other people's children into a past lifetime. But we can work through, say, the mother of the child, and we can call the spirit of the child forth with the client, the mother's spirit guides present. We could bring the child's spirit guides present as well and work through issues in that child's past. And it could be their present life, and it could be a past life. And help them work through their own pain, work through their own trauma, again, under the aegis of, in this case, the mom's spirit guide. But to your point, we could also bring in the child's spirit guide as well. I haven't found the necessity for doing that as long as we have the guide for the mom present, but that could certainly be done. But it's a really great question, and thank you for asking it. Okay, here is Random Rapper. Such a pleasure listening to this intelligent conversation. You really helped me to reconnect with my past. Thank you. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it. Valerie Nelson. Valerie says, oh my gosh. She says, I lost my sister last week. Well, I'm really, really sorry, Valerie. That has got to be super painful. I lost my sister just last week and had a horrible nightmare. Put this back up. And had a horrible nightmare last night of her in the hospital with tubes everywhere and trying to call 911, but couldn't get through. This is not how she was in the hospital. Okay. So I have to think of this. I don't know this for sure, but I have to think of this as some kind of metaphor. It certainly sounds like a metaphor maybe for extraordinary measures. That may or may not be it. It sounds like a metaphor for An inability to communicate. Was there something that she was trying to say? Was there something she wanted you to know, wanted other people to know? There's a book by a woman named Anita Moorjani, Moorjani, first name Anita. And the book is called Dying to Be Me. And she recounts her experience of having terminal cancer, of actually dying in the hospital, clinically dying as verified by the machines. And when she was dead, she had simultaneous intimate awareness of all of her friends and particularly of her family simultaneously. So her brother was flying to where she was, and she was aware of her husband, and she was aware of all these people at the same time. But of course, she couldn't. She was in essentially the spirit world and couldn't communicate with any of them, but she could feel them. She was aware of their presence, and so one of the things that comes up for me when I read your account is, maybe there's something going on there. She tried to call 911, but she couldn't get through. She was asking for help. 911 is a helpline, right? She was asking for help, but she couldn't get the help. And maybe this means, and I don't know for sure because I don't really know you and I don't know her, but is she wanting to talk to you? Is she wanting to communicate with you? Was she in pain that went beyond physical pain? Are the tubes and everything a metaphor for some other kind of emotional or psychological pain? And in the way that you can meet with your spirit guides, in the way that you can go into a past lifetime, you can certainly meet with deceased relatives. You can meet with deceased friends because it's only her body that has died. And I know that that's extremely painful for us as humans. I'm not going to say it's not painful for me when I've lost people. It is. But it's also an incredible healing balm when you can connect your consciousness to theirs. Because the only reason that we can't access her right now is because she no longer has a body. And so we use our body through the five senses to interact with each other. And when one of us doesn't have a body anymore, those methods don't work anymore. But it doesn't mean that the method of your consciousness doesn't work. It always works. And this is why people will, not just guides, but deceased loved ones will often come to people in a dream. And it usually happens right after someone dies. They'll either have an experience with their five senses that isn't necessarily the person per se, but is something like an animal or what have you, or they'll have an experience in a dream. And it's almost like that deceased loved one is letting you know they're okay. For me, it was a physical thing. It was after my uncle died, I was the closest to him of anybody, and he was like my father. He acted like my father. And after he died, a few days after he died, I was in my bedroom, and it was the fall, and it was a warm day, and the windows were open, and there was a heavy comforter on the bed, and there was like a gentle breeze coming in. It wasn't like gale force winds or anything, and this heavy comforter just went up and then back down again. And I had the instant knowing, like the discussion about intuition before, that it was him, that he was letting me know that he was okay. So I'm really sorry. Please accept my condolences for the loss of your sister, and know that when the time is right, you can connect with her, your consciousness with hers, and that perhaps you can ask her when you do that, is there something you wanted me to know? Is there something you wanted other people to know that you weren't able to communicate? On my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, there is a track about healing grief due to the loss of a loved one. And sometimes in the immediate aftermath of their passing, it's very hard to connect. It's like there's too much, I call it like silt, like after a storm in the ocean, if you were to go snorkeling or scuba diving, you can't see much because there's all this silt that's been raised up. But after a few days of calm, all of that goes back down to the seabed, the seafloor, and now you can see clearly again. And I think it's the same for us with emotion. And it's so normal to be in a state of grief and emotional intensity after somebody we love passes. So at some point in the future, you may be able to use that track to connect your consciousness to hers and ask those questions. But in the meantime, please accept my condolences. I'm really sorry. Here, Valerie is saying, my first day back after a few months, I will get registered. Cool. It'll be great to see you there. This is going to be the past life regression class on Saturday, the 5th of February. It's going to be delivered via Zoom. So we'll be able to see each other. We'll be able to interact with each other. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be wonderful. And it's going to be great to see you there, honestly. And maybe there's something we can do that day. I know it's past life regression and everything, but we'll see if we can do something, so please, if you feel comfortable, raise it in the class. Here is Ajna. In a lot of my dreams, I hear weird language through the whole dream. In fact, I couldn't recognize any word or meaning. How do I deal with this? Okay. So I guess I would ask you, when you hear the weird language, do you feel connected to it in any way? Do you feel any emotions that are happening? Because sometimes when you don't understand words, you can still understand the meaning. The other thing would be to work through your spirit guides. Work through your guides and ask the guides to help you understand the meaning, either by writing it out in English, in your mind, or communicating it to you by essentially speaking mind to mind to you, or by taking you by the hand and showing you an example, a scene that is describing this language. You could also use a pendulum and determine, did I speak this language in a past lifetime? And then you could ask, is this a Slavic language? Is this a Romance language? Is this, what, to try to figure out what the language is. And again, if this is something from your past lifetime. All right, hopefully that helps. Before we go on, I just want to talk briefly about next week. So next Friday live at 5, I thought we would stay with this theme of past life regression since I'm going to be doing this class with some folks on the 5th of February. So I thought we would talk about some case studies from past life regression. I thought I would just go through my files and, I'm not going to use names, of course, but come up with some kind of interesting case studies and then talk about those and see if we can get a little bit deeper into that. And that'll help people understand more of what the kind of what the process is as you walk through this, what's happening as it unfolds, because it really unfolds like reading a novel or watching a movie or something. You don't know exactly what's happening and what each step means along the way, and then how it's tied back to the present lifetime, and oftentimes how it then impacts somebody's present life. So we're going to be talking about that. And then here, this is the class in case anybody else is interested in it. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's got the date on there, and then it also has this discount code, a 22% discount code, which is based on 2022. So BlueSky 222 should give you a 22% discount. Musette signed up today, and I don't know if that discount code got messed up when she was trying to enter it, if it was my fault or whatever, but I'm just going to send a refund back because I don't want anybody paying more than other people at this point. But anyway, yeah, if anyone else is interested in signing up for that class, please do. It's going to be delivered via Zoom. All right, let's take one or two more questions, and then I'm off to find some furniture. So I have something to sit on other than a camping chair. And thank God for the camping chair. I got to say that. I'm really happy I have something, and I've got my computer sitting on a bin that we used to put in the back of my pickup truck. Okay. Let's see here. Katie Johnson. Hi, Katie. Katie says, I have heard that seeing a home in a dream is a representation of yourself. Is this true? And why would a person regularly dream about a home that they have never seen or lived in? Asking for me. I like that last phrase, asking for me. I don't know about a representation of yourself. I don't know that. I know that there are people who say, here's what these different objects mean. And that's definitely not my expertise. I mean, I mentioned before that I will look up regarding animals. What is the spiritual meaning of this particular animal? I would say, because you had this question about if you've never been in the home, why would you keep having a dream about it? Well, what if you lived in that home in a past lifetime? That would be my first thought, is either you lived in that house in a past lifetime, or there's something about that house or houses in general that is a metaphor for what's going on in your life right now. So let's say, I'll give you an example from my own life. So when I was in a past relationship, I was in it for quite a while, and the concept of marriage came up, and I was pretty resistant to it, and I didn't know why. I started to think it was just me. I wasn't the kind of person that would ever want to get married. And I kept having this recurring dream, and this is long before I got into this work. I was just kind of leading a more conventional life. And I kept having this dream of being in a house, and all the lights were on, all the lamps, all the overhead lights, everything was on, but I still had a really hard time seeing things. And I was so frustrated because everything was really, really dim, even though all the lights were on. And I didn't know what else to do because I'd turned all the lights on. And after that relationship ended, the dream went away, and I've never had it since then. And so I know it had something to do, it was a metaphor for that something wasn't quite right, that I couldn't really see what I needed to see. So the house in your dreams, as I say, could be a house from a past lifetime, or it could be a metaphor. That the setting of a house does have so much to do with our lives, right? I mean, and we're talking about that in my life right now. You walk into a house and you feel safe, or you feel elevated, or you feel comfortable. You feel, did I say safe already? You feel at home. That there's so much emotion wrapped up in this, so it makes sense that in a dream it would have a powerful impact. And I would say the same to you that I've said to several other people today, and that is, consider using a pendulum. And using a pendulum to determine, is this a house from a past lifetime I've led? Is this a house I was in when I was, pre-verbal, when I was so young I can't remember it? Is this house that I keep seeing in this dream a metaphor for something? If you get a hit on one of those, go deeper into it. Is it a metaphor for, I don't feel at home in my life right now? That I don't feel safe, that I can't find my way around, that I can't get myself out of the house? Like, am I supposed to get out of the house and go do something else? Hopefully this sort of sparks some ideas of questions that you can ask to pursue this further. So I guess we're just about at time. Let me take one more here. Scrolling down. Okay, here is Doreen. My mom died in 2013 and was cremated. I have often had dreams of visiting a grave or some sort of eminence, but then the disappointing reality kicks in that a place is not there for her. Okay, so what if you thought of a physical grave as a physical manifestation of a non-physical phenomenon? I know that probably sounds really confusing, but what I mean by this is, does not a grave bring into our mind the life of that person, her smile, her warmth, her smell, special things that you did together, things you had in common, things she taught you, places that you visited together, family events that you were in, just by going to the grave? Just like a picture, a photograph could do that, or a memento, having something that belonged to her. Would that not bring your mind, in a non-physical sense, right through memory and emotion and other types of thoughts and feelings, would that not bring you to a place, right, in your mind? And if that's true, then maybe And let me just bring this back up again. Okay, so that maybe when you have dreams of visiting the grave, it's the trigger or the talisman that does what it would do if you physically walked to her physical grave and had all of those thoughts and feelings and memories and emotions that may in turn help you process through that relationship and the meaning for you in your life. So I think we will end it there. And thanks for asking that question, because it's a really, really awesome question. And I hope my answer made some sense to you. And I hope, and to thank everyone who was on the call today for the comments that you made, for the questions that you asked, and just, your well wishes for this new place in Florida, for participating, and for sharing your time with everyone else on the call and with me. And I hope others will consider joining Valerie and Musette in joining us on the class on February 2nd. That's this guy here. Remember BlueSky 222. It's all characters together for the 22% discount if you decide you want to do it. And I hope you'll consider joining next Friday live at 5 for the past life regression case studies, where we'll be going through actual case studies, which is more of the nuts and bolts of how these sessions unfold. And I will look forward to that, and I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. And again, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for participating. Take care. Bye.